I'm Alyse Sue and you're watching the Transhumanism Tech channel. Today we're talking about future of autonomous vehicles and why Tesla and Comma.ai will win the war to change how we travel forever. Let's take a look at why. Tesla is the electric autonomous car company founded by Elon Musk, while Comma, which was founded by George Hotz, allows people to retrofit their traditional car to become self-driving through a combination of its open source software and proprietary hardware. You can consider them the iPhone and Android of autonomous vehicles. So why will they win the war? Well, firstly, other autonomous vehicle companies haven't thought about how they're going to scale up. Waymo is one of the earliest companies that was acquired by Google, yet 10 years after they were founded, there is no mass adoption of their cars. They're mostly being used by employees in San Diego, and one of the reasons is that one Waymo car costs $500,000 to $1 million, which is more than the average person can afford. This is a problem many companies making this technology face, including those who are not as well known, such as Optimus Ride, Nutonomy, Norto, Oro, WeRide, May Mobility, Automotive, and InThink, and the list goes on. The founder of Optimus Ride, which operates self-driving shuttle services in industrial parks in New York, has said in a way they are also conducting a research project, which makes sense for a startup that came out of MIT. But in comparison, a low-end Tesla Model 3 is only $35,000 US, and Comma.ai's hardware only costs $1,000 US. Secondly, many companies are being propped up by VC money with no real path to profitability. Tens of billions of money is going into autonomous vehicle companies, but they are not generating return on investment. Many of these companies find themselves making bigger promises to VCs without a clear path on how to execute. Zoox, which was acquired by Amazon, didn't make any revenue and had no real business model. Zoox had raised over $995 million over 4 rounds of funding with no profit in sight. And that's before Amazon snapped them up. Zoox was confident they would secure more capital, but it seems eventually they were shopping for a buyer and then sold to Amazon well below their 2018 valuation of $3.2 billion. Zoox was founded in 2014, and they had the ambitious mission of developing and building self-driving cars from the ground up. Their decision not to retrofit traditional vehicles like many of its competitors had cost them, literally. It's expensive to design and manufacture cars, especially ones that are vastly different to the cars that we know today, and also ones which they wanted to travel in both forward and reverse directions without needing to turn around. So Zoox has 50 test vehicles registered in California, as well as a smaller fleet based in Las Vegas. But much of the training was carried out in car parks and not enough training data was captured. And as well as that, there aren't enough Zoox cars on the road. So in the end, they didn't even get to level 2 autonomy. Drive.ai likely found themselves in a similar position when they sold to Apple. Apple acquired Drive just days before it would have shut down, and Drive was meant to be one of the more promising startups to be working on autonomous cars. It previously made headlines for conducting tests with its cars without human safety drivers on public roads. The difference was, Drive was pulling in revenue from the city of Arlington and the US federal government through a mix of grant and seed funding, but it seems it still wasn't enough. And by the way, if you're interested in transhumanism, we're proud to partner with Transhuman Apparel, which makes these awesome sweaters and t-shirts. So, Transhuman Apparel aims to raise awareness about transhumanism, so buy a t-shirt to support them. Thirdly, other companies are being bought out by incumbent car manufacturing companies, yet they haven't been able to make it work. In 2016, GM spent $581 million to acquire Cruise Automation. They expected they would be the first high-volume auto manufacturer to build fully autonomous vehicles in a mass production assembly plant. This has not turned out to be true so far. And that's probably because GM are straying so far from what they're good at, which is putting parts together rather than creating and designing everything themselves from the ground up. In 2017, Ford invested $1 billion into Argo AI, alongside Volkswagen, who just closed a $2.6 billion round in 2020. The robotics company was created by former Google and Uber leaders, and Ford's intention was to deliver high-volume, fully autonomous vehicles for ride-sharing by 2021, but they have since delayed their timelines. So, what's the difference between Tesla and Comma.ai's technology? Well, lots. First thing is, Tesla does 3D labeling, whereas OpenPilot does not. OpenPilot takes actual human behavior into account. They get an image and then they ask what a driver would do. They don't explicitly detect a curb in order to know not to drive into that curb. They just ask where a human would drive, and so it closely mimics what human drivers would do. It's trained with real-world data from drivers who have installed their technology using reinforcement learning. OpenPilot software is open source as well, and you only need to buy the box, which is the hardware that is required to capture images, and then run your car with driver assist features. It also has driver monitoring, which captures the face of the driver and if they're looking away from the front of the car. And if the driver is looking away, it starts beeping. Tesla is anticipated to also install this type of technology onto their cars. Tesla, on the other hand, is taking a more feature engineering approach, labeling many items in the image, including cars, lanes, and curbs. So Tesla is more rules-based with machine learning overlaid on top of it. There is much more feature engineering, as they have to engineer for red lights, pedestrian crossings, and road signs. However, signs can be blurred and it can confuse its sensors. And they also have rules around lanes, and they can also get confused in situations where, for example, there could be an oil spill over the lanes. So it relies much more on rules instead of overall system training on machine learning. Tesla, however, do have their own proprietary hardware and their own chips. If you want to hear more about robots and autonomous vehicles, then click on this video. One of the advantages Tesla has is in its fleet size. They now have 500,000 cars on the road, while Comma only has 50,000. Comma predicts they are about 4 years behind on fleet size, 2 years behind on hardware, and 1 year behind on data. In the end, however, these figures may not matter so much. But we haven't even begun thinking or talking about how big the AV industry in China is and how they may very well be the leading consumers of autonomous vehicles. If you want to hear more about that and more transhumanism tech, make sure you subscribe.